the last day of the HGC weekend, and teams are making it count. Dreadnought, how about that Dignitas Team Liquid match?
It got even better, I feel like. The fact that Beat Genius was able to get a win. We got some of the best teams in the world to start off HGC Europe, and then we got to see finally Beat Genius get their first win. It's exciting, the fact that North America's had its mix-ups and Europe.
Yeah, Danatan looked so happy that they were finally able to get their first win. A huge congrats to them, as well as to Fnatic and Dignitas, who are now up there very close in standings, all tied up. It's kind of like the middle of NA standings, right? It's going to be hard to see who tops the charts at the end of Part 2 for Europe. But looking at the North American standings, we know who tops the chart, at least who's very likely to do so by the end of Part 2, and that is Tempo Storm. They will be going up against Team Naventic. Naventic having a hard time. They did get a series win in Part 2, but other than that, it's been a struggle for them. Although, putting up a good fight versus Galeforce Esports yesterday, a lion-hearted effort from them.
A lion-hearted effort is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it didn't work out for them, and we know that it's going to probably be a dark story for them again today against Tempo Storm. Not too many reasons to see, you know, too big of a mix-up, so it's going to be more of the thought process of Naventic. They said they want to iron out their issues before going to the Crucible, which they've kind of accepted their fate at that point. So it's going to be more of what do we see Naventic learn against Tempo Storm?
Let's take a look at the schedule for today and see where you can expect that matchup, as well as what you can expect in our other for North America. After HGC Korea today, guys, Team Liquid versus Team Dignitas. If you missed that, our website is playheroes.com/esports. Go there after our matches and watch it because it was incredible. Game 1 was my favorite, Towers of Doom. And then yes, Beat Genius got their first win in HGC. Finally, a breath of fresh air for them. We'll end today with the super hype matchup of No Tomorrow versus Superstars. We'll be talking a lot about why that match is so important as we get there, but first, Team Naventic and Tempo Storm. Naventic did have some high points versus Galeforce yesterday. Specifically, we got to see great Valera play from Zuna and B-Kid's Tyrael. Where the heck's that been?
yeah, B-Kid finally looks comfortable on a wide variety of heroes. And the fact that, like you said, the Tyrael play, we know Tyrael to be one of the hardest warriors to really thrive on. So the fact that he had very solid performance there is one of those things that we were talking about, that we want to see those positive developments from Naventic if they're going to stand a chance surviving the Crucible.
Let's see what both of the teams think about this very first matchup of the day here at HGC North America.
Really bad in the first part. We took Tempo Storm to Game 5. If we play to the level that we perform in scrims, I'm very confident that we can win this set. I feel that way against every team in NA, honestly. So we just need to take each game one at a time and then worry about the next one when it comes.
For Naventic, we're just mainly trying to keep track of how they draft, just see what kind of comps they've been playing in HGC. I think overall they've sort of limited hero pool, so once we figure out what they're playing, it's pretty easy to build a strong draft plan around that. They have been struggling a little, but they always have their textbook Naventic aggression, and we have to keep that in the back of our minds just to make sure that we don't slip up and that we do keep control of the games, because otherwise they could take games off us, but we're pretty confident that we can take the series.
Dread, as you said, Team Naventic understanding of the situation they're in. They know that it's very likely they'll be going to the Crucible, so they're trying to fix all of their issues before they do so, especially because the Open Division is getting tense right now. There is only one cup left. That's going to be this week for the NA Open Division for teams to be able to get enough points to play in the playoffs. And with two teams folding who were quite high up in the standings, it's really anyone's game. But there are 3 teams now that people are looking at as teams able to maybe come in and knock one of these teams out at the end with the Crucible.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about when we casted Dorm is the fact that we got to talk to some of the players that are actually at the top of the Open Division.
Yeah.
And getting to talk to those guys, a lot of them originally, it seems like the thought process was, we are all focused on who can get their hands on No Tomorrow. They felt like after seeing all of Part 1, because that was when the Heroes of the Dorm happened, right after Part 1, and they were all just like, yeah, that's going to be the team of focus. But now, Naventic obviously is the highest probable team to be able to be in that position, but way less appealing to an average Open Division team.
Definitely, because Naventic has the name behind them.
They've got legitimate world level, like international performing level players. Like they have been there and done that, especially people like Zuna. So I can understand that intimidation. It makes a lot of sense. But, you know, everybody was just so like, oh, we're going to get No Tomorrow. It's going to be so awesome. Like we think we have that chance. And now even the bottom half with No Tomorrow's performance, it's not as concrete.
Yeah, you back Naventic into a corner, and I guarantee they're going to show some teeth and maybe some claws to boot. We're ready for this series, Naventic versus Tempo Storm, starting with the Battleground pool. Let's see what has been banned out and where we're going for game 1. Bans on Infernal Shrines, as well as Warhead Junction. We're picking Battlefield of Eternity. That is the Naventic choice for game 1.
And it makes a lot of sense. We've seen Naventic be the highest priority on Battlefield of Eternity, still one of the only teams between Part 1 and 2 to hold that true. Tempo Storm, worst map, Battlefield of Eternity. The least amount of success, I think their first win ever?
Their first win of HGC, yes, and ever that we've seen, even with Western Clash. They did lose to Team 8, but that came in this weekend versus Team Freedom.
And so that is pretty much what this means is not only is it Naventic's best map, it's Tempo Storm's worst map. I feel like this is going to be a strong indicator of just what the rest of the series is going to entail, right? Just if Tempo Storm comes out and just really confidently wins it, I feel like that's what we could expect, 3 games and done. But if Naventic wins this here, it's going to show that it'll at least be a bit more competitive. There is, you know, some fight still left in Naventic.
Tempo Storm banning Malfurion. Malf has been probably the strongest support, I'd say, for Kenma so far in Part 2. He's had some great Twilight Dreams. We did see Brightwing play from him yesterday, but positioning was not where it should have been. He did get caught out a lot. I feel like we've seen that a bit too from his Rhaegar, so I would anticipate that Tempo may try to continue going off of that ban to cut down the hero pool of Kenma.
Yeah, and I think that's a really reliable focus. A lot of teams, when Naventic was a lot more successful in the North American region, that was the #1 go-to strategy, was find a way to be able to pick off Kenma, try and you know, use him make him your prey, really. Everybody build a composition, focus on diving him.
The only thing is Tempo Storm doesn't play Lucio, and that would be the next favored.
Yeah. With the Malfurion gone.
For Team Naventic, yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll see if they want to pick up Lucio here, knowing that Malfurion's already been banned. But Greymane's the first pick for Tempo Storm. This hero is just continuing to rise, and it makes a lot of sense. He's one of the highest picked heroes in HGC North America. He's one of the highest win rate heroes in North America, sitting at 80% now. He's even overtaken Lunara, which was above him for a long time.
And I'm really glad to see that. I often put like the heroes that I think are maybe a little bit misvalued here and there in North America, but he was without a doubt, him and Arthas, the most confusing to me. I was just like, how do we not see more teams jumping on this guy after nerfs have come into Tychus so frequently? And, you know, Greymane has kind of been just left after he was extremely strong, small amount of nerf, fell out of favor, and now he's slowly making his way back, at least for North America. It's one of his best maps on Battlefield of Eternity. He wins on the race so much. We even got to experiencing that yesterday with Team 8. We were talking about, you know, how good of a racing team their opponents had, and then Greymane proceeds to just out-damage everyone and get a free Immortal. Talking about the Lucio you brought up, though, there's going to be that for Naventic and then B-Kid on the Murden.
So a comfortable warrior, but one that can sustain through a lot of damage. He has Lockdown to pair with the Lockdown of the Immortals too. I really like that rotation for Team Naventic that they've gotten. They understood immediately what Tempo Storm was going for. It was quite blatant what Tempo Storm was doing with that Malfurion ban. So next to Tyrael's still up if Tempo Storm wants to pair Tyrael with Greymane. We've also seen a lot of Anubarak play from Tempo Storm, even a lot more Cocoons, too.
Yeah, they have been very up on the Cocoon. There's going to be the pickup there. Karazim, after the support choke that has come in, no surprise to see, you know, June lean towards the Karazim on Battlefield of Eternity. But yeah, there has been a lot, and a just insane amount, really, of Cocoon here for North America so far. It's been big in Europe. It's been pretty successful. Naventic is hovering the Abathur ban. That is something that is becoming the North American standard. It feels like, at least on Towers and BOE. At times, maybe on Cursed Hollow, we play it.
Yeah, and if Naventic played Li Ming on the last Battlefield of Eternity game. If they have an idea of trying to defend and have long poke wars around the Immortals once again, then they don't want Tempo Storm to get Abathur plus Abathur Greymane is it just a scary combo in general?
Yeah, it very much is. And now Tempo Storm has to ask themselves if they want to ban out the Arthas for a double warrior composition, or if they want to let it go through. Because normally when we see Tempo Storm move with that Cocoon Nubarak, it's with an Arthas picked higher. Considering the map, though, Tempo Storm decided they wanted the Nubarak. A lot of that, I think, comes down to the Li Ming threat that you brought up before. She's just so good on this map, by far her best.
She is. She hasn't won yet, but it is her best. And a Nubarak is already here for Tempo Storm to be able to block a lot of the skill shots.
They're taking their sweet time on this ban. I thought they'd be a bit quicker.
Do you think they're concerned for Valeera at all from Naventic?
That could be it. It could be the Valeera. I feel like a lot of it comes down to trying to figure out how do they want to approach these fights for the secondary warrior, because you don't typically want that Nubarak to be alone. It's going to be a ban on Arthas. All right, that was what I expected, because if Naventic gets the Arthas here, it makes it very, very scary. But if Naventic picks, like, what is the secondary warrior? You always want Arthas, Anu, Murden, and Tyrael is the only other one that stands out. So you could see Naventic actually picking up a Tyrael possibly in this rotation. It would hurt their race. It would hurt a lot, but it would cripple where Tempo Storm might want to move with their secondary warrior.
Every Battlefield of Eternity game that Naventic has played has had some sort of global hero to have side soak. And an Abathur ban sort of makes me feel like they still want to get that, either Falstad, like when they played it versus Galeforce Esports, or Dahaka again, so that they can control and make sure that if they do get behind somehow, it's not too far behind Tempo Storm in the macro game.
I would really like it to be a Falstad. If that's their thought process, I do not want to see a Dahaka there in the double warrior. It just, Dahaka on BOE, he does have a place, or they're going to go with the Tyrael Deny instead. I thought, personally, I would love if that was Tyrael Falstad. That would have been just brilliant rotation coming out from Naventic. Just because it meets that global standard you were talking about, and what Naventic has shown recently, while removing the other brilliant double warrior synergy while still having it in your own composition. Tyrael, I think he's going to make his way through North America. We're seeing a bit more slowly. He's showing up, but I feel like we finally accepted that he is just impactful enough that he might be near, 100% involvement.
I love that. No matter what happens to him in patches, justice is always on the menu, Dread.
Yeah, justice is in fact, and he's serving it all day.
All day.
Just hot platter of justice for you.
He will judge you, and he will find you wanting.
That is such a harsh word, but like from Tyrael's epic voice and everything, when he says like I will judge you, like it feels almost like out of care, right? But when you say it's like he will judge you, it sounds way more rude. Way more rude. The Falstad Zeratul was the choice here for Tempo Storm. Leaving up is the Valeera with a triple melee, quadruple melee, actually. Is that something Naventic wants to do now that they see the Zeratul? With the Falstad removed too, they aren't going to win in the global department. So with that Tychus rotation.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that it had been Tyrael Tychus. I do think that Naventic probably would have grabbed Falstad here if Tempo Storm hadn't have taken it. But now they'll get Lunara. So the hunt is on.
The Lunara is gonna, we know how good she can be onto the race. She won't be able to put too much damage out into the Anub, but then everybody else on that team, except for maybe Greymane, is low enough HP to where she can do a lot of damage very, very quickly. Karazim is a decent healer to be able to support that. We talk about that enough. I think Naventic's got a better comp than I expected them to over Tempo Storm here in this game, game number 1.
Yeah, the Lunara did a lot to help it out as well. She is going to be able to throw out a lot of the poison damage too. She has damage for the race. We may see them take Nature's Culling. It's very rare nowadays that a team does so, but it is Battlefield of Eternity, and I think Naventic is the only team in HGC North America that I've seen take it in part 2, so maybe even getting that, but I think it should be Leaping Strike to make sure she can get those kills.
I feel like Naventic's comp is pretty forgiving considering that of Tempo Storm's. A lot of this is going to be just execution. If they play the early game 1 through 9 and they go on even footing, not too crazy of a snowball in any direction, I really do think post 10 their team fight is insane. As long as they play it properly, not getting picked off by Zeratul, Psalm's going to be trying to wreak havoc onto the squishies. But if they're successful there, I think there's a really high chance actually Naventic could take this game considering not only the map, but then draft itself.
Well, we're ready to see how Naventic can do versus our #1 team in standings for North America, Tempo Storm. We will see you on the battlefield of eternity.
And in the blue on the left-hand side here is Team Naventic. Kenma is going to be on the Lucio. B-Kid is going to be playing his Muradin. Zuna, filling the secondary warrior, is going to be playing Tyrael. Lunara will be played by Big Impact here. And last, we're going to have Tomster on Tychus.
Their opponents, Tempo Storm, looking for yet another clean victory, with June playing Karazim. Fury again playing a new Barak. Kothan Luck playing his Falstad. Playing Zeratul will be, of course, Psalm, sneaking around the battlefield. And finally, Caterpillar playing Greymane.
Naventic here, man, I'm really excited to see how this plays out. My biggest fear is the fact that Tempo Storm will just get too big of a lead pre-10 for anything really to matter in this game, because I do feel like that Tyrael rotation, yes, they might not have won with the Tychus pickup for the global fight itself, but I really do feel like that was a very next level pick for them, for Naventic here, to be able to make that adjustment. And the fact that it's going to have Zuna on that can make some really big plays here with the Sanctifications.
Now, we did see a different Tyrael player from Naventic yesterday. It was B-Kid. B-Kid will be stacking his Perfect Storm talents at level 1. Probably getting Sledgehammer. We'll see if he gets Sledgehammer, but that has been making more of a comeback with a lot of teams on Battlefield of Eternity.
One thing we did see there is the rotation to send Falstad up on top. That's going to allow Psalm to rotate outward, maybe look for any kind of pick into the 4-man. Kenma might be the best focus target there. Very, very squishy, but the mobility, we'll find out. He's going for the collapse. Doesn't look like he's going to open up.
B-Kid's been watching for it too. Catches Psalm. Psalm blinks away. Teams gearing up, waiting for the first Immortal phase.
The laning matchup up on top is going to draw more aggro towards the Tyrael. We talk about, you know, what are good solos and how Tyrael's this weird actual bully, but in all the wrong reasons. He doesn't really contain much of what you expect a good solo laner to have, but it's more his shielding on the minions allow his minion wave to almost always win if there's no influence. Then just the mobility that he provides, and he actually does a reasonable amount of damage, can trade well into most heroes.
Yeah, especially since he picked up Purge Evil at level 1. That does extra damage with Smite 2 heroes. The Immortal phase has started. Psalm's been caught. Kothan's there too. Tempo Storm are looking for a reset for the fight.
Fury's going to burrow in. Just going to drop the boop and walk away for now. Some of the members in Naventic setting their focus onto the Immortal. Tempo Storm going to try and look to deny that here as they posture up. Zuna goes in. Nobody going down. You know, very kind of feeling the waters here for both these teams. Fury falls pretty low. Managed to get the burrow out, and he's not going to go down.
It was a max range to get underneath the rocks too, but having to go back, having to tap enables Naventic to get the halfway point nearly started. Tomster gets away in time. Cattle moves back to defend. There's no Thornwood Vine, you know, there's only a grenade and nothing like a quarterback, but finally Naventic will stop it, but not a ton of poke options other than Storm Bowl, hoping for a grenade for Team Naventic, nothing like Li Ming.
I mean, if we talk about the lack of poke that might exist on the side of Naventic, Tempo Storm's even got worse of a time, right? It's like, outside of Flask, they do have the perfect aim for the increased range, but that is really the biggest poke tool that exists in the hands of Tempo Storm. Zeratul will get better at 7, so will Falstad. Just with the Boomerang and having the Seeker in the dark, but those two talents aren't enough to even make up for Lunara single-handedly with just her poke. So we are going to see less full defensive kind of posturing out, more brawling because of that lack of poke on these teams.
Speaking of brawling, Naventic sending 4 of the members up to push along with us. Immortal leaving Tyrael once again in the bottom lane, and Zeratul is there too. Making Naventic feel slightly safer about being able to siege along with this Immortal. They're looking at least to be able to take down the wall. Tempo Storm just doing their best to defend this. It's already in melee range.
So it's only going to be a front wall gained here for Naventic, but again, it's going to be 1 through 9 here. Their composition doesn't totally come online until they hit that 10. Whereas Tempo Storm's draft is reasonably effective pre-10. The Zeratul is one of the best pre-10 heroes in the game. Falstad's up there as long as he uses flights properly, and Greymane is as well with his gap closer and his skirmishing in that Worgen form.
Nice dodge from Cattle to jump in and then go back behind the wall. Naventic is keeping the aggression going. They have been able to push Tempo Storm back into their base, starting to look at mercenary camps to get some pressure in so that they can rotate in. Looking at Shaman closer to their the next Immortal phase, as well as trying to get 7.
One interesting thing we saw from Naventic on BOE, I believe it was Naventic, is they purposely miscapped. Hold on a second. The invade attempt on the camp. Naventic picks it up. All right, so nothing going to break out here yet. But Naventic was mistiming their Shaman camp, correct? Wasn't it Naventic?
I thought it was Superstars.
It might have been. It might be crazier. I just remember seeing such a consistent mistime of the camp, and I was like, you know, are we going to see Naventic try and do that again? They're playing it very different. So for now, nobody's too crazy on their Shamans. Timing it around the secondary Immortal is always going to be the main focus for teams because it really is probably the biggest Merc power play you can get in all of Heroes. Just how slow it takes to capture the objective. It's even better than Knights on Sky.
There are a couple of members from Tempo who can rotate in, so it's not as big of an issue as with some compositions where you don't want anybody to leave. You really need the full complete set to make things happen. They've got Falstad with Boomerang who can fly in, and that global advantage will be nice. Zuna has been caught by 3 members. June with a long flank to be there once Zuna dives to his Elduran's Might.
Well, we have the Immortals up. Once Song gets rid of the camp up here, Naventic is now going to start for a very late Shaman camp. See if Tempo Storm can kick off the halftime show before that camp's going to be finished, as they do have 3 members here. B-Kid is not enough peel here. Big impact.
No, they had to leave the camp.
Yeah.
This was taking way too long.
Yeah, that was a very optimistic attempt to start it. It didn't fully leash either, so they're going to return back to it. Looks like they'll be able to get it, but the minute that thing dings, Tempo Storm is going to know and play very offensive. They even do it before. It's going to get the halftime show.
They could tell, just based on the positioning, where people were coming from, as well as a lot of people being gone. So this is a great start to this Immortal phase for Tempo Storm.
Wow,
Paddle's been caught.
All by himself. Will he be able to get out? Stormbolt's not been used yet. Tychus's grenade, the dash and the heal coming out from June. The disengage. Kemba goes for the chase down, gets the pick, and that is going to be a kill going over to Naventic. Actually, the very first of this game, 7 minutes in.
Very late first blood for the team. That lets Naventic catch up as much as they can with the Immortals. It'll be a short respawn timer, 4 seconds until Caterpillar's back. So how much can Naventic get done?
With only a 3-man split, they've ended up sending up the Tyrael and the Murden to try and play defensive. They're doing a good job getting the zone. Big impact on the Lunar, decides to join.
Did not get Nature's Culling. He has Splintered Spear, so more focused on being able to win team fights and just dish out the max amounts of poison damage. Zuna's there, poison damage starting to hit for Fury and June.
Salma's getting damage onto the backline though, so we'll see if he ends up getting the pick. Fury has to get the burrow out. Stormbolt lands onto Cattle once again, going on to Kenma. Seeker in the dark not going to land onto the proper target, but so much damage. Cattle throwing out that flask. They end up trading 1-for-1 here as the Stormbolt connects. It looks like June is not going to make it out. Psalm, not either. This is going to be Naventic taking control.
Yeah, way worse trade as more and more are falling. Cawthon not getting out with his life either. Only a Nubarak survives, and where Tempo Storm had started this Immortal phase with a much better positioning and start. Team Naventic are almost certainly going to get this. Yeah, there's no way that this rotation can come in.
And this is going to come at worse timing for
Heroic
Tempo Storm.
abilities.
It's going to be with the heroic abilities, and Tempo Storm is going to be grasping for experience. They luckily have a Zeratul and Falstad for that side soak, so less information given in the process of catching up into the heroics. But this is a huge power play for Naventic, and they're actually forfeiting it. They're splitting Zuna on top of the Siege. They're not going to sacrifice any experience. So this is actually a really interesting approach. So one of the biggest problems with taking a lead in Heroes of the Storm is you know that Tempo Storm can't fight this, no matter how many people are down here, purely based on the heroics. So rather than losing any experience, Naventic is now saying, by sending Tyrael top, that they personally feel they will gain more to later talent tier advantages by not losing any of this experience, and from what they would have gained on bottom is a full 5-man. This is more banking towards the 16 talent tier advantage than it is this weird middle game. They would rather stall out, maintain their advantage.
Playing for the late game.
Man, but then rotating Tyrael now, like that is the last time you would want to do that. Okay, they're going for 1-4.
They're going to make a split and get both of the forts,
That
which
makes
is
more
really
sense.
nice too, because trying to siege versus a Zeratul, there's a possibility that he just loops around and void prisons them. If Psalm would have left, he was in the top, and also Gust could have just pushed them away. So In this case, Naventic go up to the top, but not in time to actually start sieging the fort. So instead, going to try to get the Khazra camp. Som has picked up on this. All full rotation, moving in.
Just going to be a flask, and, you know, again, trying to figure out where Naventic is. Tyrael is up here. Falstad still getting the soak on bottom, so if Zuna goes in, it might be able to get a play as Psalm trying to find the anchor of B-Kid. Man, this is Naventic. The fact that they've been so successful level 1 through 9. I talked about where the comp power spike came in, and it's going to be later on here. We see the Cocoon for Tempo Storm with the Void once more. A heavy isolation composition, but somebody's going to have to focus on this Tyrael. He just stops all of that momentum.
Just seeing how the last fight went for Team Naventic already makes me scared for the time before last that Tempo Storm lost a game, which was when they had Karazim versus a Lunara comp. They could not keep up the damage. It was Powers of Doom, and it was versus Superstars. Gust being used. Biggie is there. Leaping Strike. Death to Falstad.
Kattle's going in, trying to even this out there. There's going to be the Sound Barrier and the Sanctification stacked on top of one another. Kattle makes it out even with the quarterback, and it looks like Lunara is going to end up falling here, but it's a 4 versus 4 in bottom.
Cocoon's hit, but Zuna's busted out. Broken out very quickly from Tomster. Now Fury's in trouble, trying to juke away from B-Kid, but Kenma's there with the sound wave, a stun, and a second kill, 2 for 1.
Yeah, and that was with stacking the heroics of Naventic, so not even necessarily the smoothest of opening to a team fight. And Tempo Storm is still struggling. So 1 through 9, Tempo Storm's composition debatably should be able to take off a bit better, and it did not. And then even later on, when you see the stacked heroics between the Sound Barrier and the Sanctification, and still Naventic pulled ahead. It just, when does it stop? And I feel like with the Lunara scaling, and again, everything that Naventic has built in their comp, unless they get picks with Zeratul, I don't see them winning team fights.
13 talent here online for Team Naventic presents another problem for Tempo Storm. Tempo don't have that talent tier. It is a very sustainable one for the members of Team Naventic. They have healing static. They also have Neo Steel coating and greater spell shield. So all banking on being able to survive versus, Greymane Burst or Zeratul Burst to try to come in and get one of those squishy targets.
Psalm was trying to sit there, stealthily, not reflecting any light, but eventually somebody found him out. And the fact that he lost half his HP and is not going to get heals anytime soon. Zuna even chasing him down. B-Kid's buying time.
Oh!
Psalm gets leaping struck, and he is going to fall here. Not even the halftime show kicking off for Tempo, while Zeratul was buying time.
That was so pretty from Biggie to use the camp so he could get in position to guarantee the kill on Psalm. And that is no Void Prison for Tempo Storm. For a few more seconds now, Team Naventic, every time you get a kill on Zeratul and know that he is back in, it's a lot less scary for you to be out in the wild as a squishy like Biggie.
Yeah, don't want to cross the wilderness line. You might lose all your loot and only come back just to, with Lumbridge with 3 items. It's a pretty sad time.
It is super sad. But Zeratul is back, so sad pandas resume for Naventic. But if they can get this Immortal, they'll be able to continue that lead. What
you had no idea what I was talking about.
No, I had no clue.
All right. I'm not, we're just going to leave that where it was.
Okay.
Fury falls low. They're going to get the initiation. Tempo Storm now sees the Odin there on the backside. The Immortal falling low in HP, so Tempo's got to figure out what they want to do. It looks like it's forfeiting this 100 shielding Immortal that is going to be marching into the top lane here in the next couple of seconds.
Tomster's just trying to bully Psalm and the rest of Tempo Storm off of this camp. They're stepping in.
They're
Wisp
taking
is
it.
here. Biggie going for the plunge. So is Zuna and Kenma.
Take the camp, walk away. That's how you do it.
With style, Team Naventic continuing an advantage over Tempo Storm on game number 1. Your number 1 team versus number 8 team in standings, and Naventic is bringing it to Tempo Storm.
Yeah, confidently. Kenma, though, gets Cursed Bullet and instantly removed here. Tempo Storm says they are not done. They might be down, but they are not out. And that is going to be the first pick, but with that scary Immortal, they're questioning if they can move up for more here. 24 seconds before the Lucio is going to join the fight. Cawthon gets engaged on by Big Impact, and we see Tomster taking the damage there. Gus comes out from Cawthon, splitting the members of Naventic, but they still do not have a kill here yet. Sanctification was used from Zuna, and that is a cooldown they're going to need to be successful here in this fight, so they back out. They do get an advantage in experience, though.
Tempo Storm have fought off Team Naventic for the moment, but Naventic itching toward level 16 talents. And in getting the minions in the bottom lane, will be right about there. With a two level window to try to make something happen versus Tempo Storm. Naventic showing again why this is their favorite battleground.
Yeah, and you know, the fact that it's Tempo Storm's worse on top of that, right? We talked about it before the game that this is a tone setter for the series. So Naventic is getting the win, or at least the lead here in this first game. And if they get it, it's in the worst map for Tempo and the best for Naventic. So it does show that there's at least a shot in the series, I feel like, more than anything. But Naventic is winning so confidently so far in this game that I feel like, you know, it's a little bit more than just the win we'll say at the end of it. It really does feel like they've come to play here today, even drafting differently than they have in the past.
I mean, we've talked about it. Naventic is momentum-based. They have stopped a lot of the old issues of momentum where if they lose one game, they could just tilt out of the series. But even still, momentum plays a factor. It's why they feel like if they're not on their home server, they feel uncomfortable. They just are a momentum team. They are based on emotions. And this is a great tone setter not only for the series, if they're able to win this game, but for them to be able to say, look, we can at least take games off of the #1 team, Tempo Storm.
Yeah, who's come out, especially in part number 2, seeming near invincible. Nobody has really put up a solid series against this team. They've merely just been, you know, games where Tempo Storm usually wins. Only dropping, I think, even just 2 so far.
Yep, 2 in the entire part 2. 1 to Freedom and 1 to Superstars.
So with this Immortal up, Naventic, obviously with 16 talent here, has the advantage, and they're going to get some free damage out. Looks like the entire 50% given up here by Tempo Storm. They got the 16 though, so defensive status for Tempo, the fight that they need to win here, because if they lose this and the Immortal, could be game.
They've found Biggie and Tomster too, but it's only Fury so far. Psalm turning around to the side. That is a difficult cocoon, and Void Prison to right on top of it. Tomsters that looks to be the target for the rest of Tempo Storm. B-Kid cannot keep him alive.
And with that one member falling here, Naventic is going to get slightly aggressive, actually. They're going to continue to try and take this fight. Cattle is in a bad spot here, gets the E onto the Immortal, and he looks like he can Q his way out. B-Kid trying to door toss in, lands the Storm Bolt onto Coffin. The palms used, not procced.
The holy ground, holy ground. Karazim is out of here. A 1-for-1. Team Naventic fighting 4 versus 5 and able to get a kill on June.
Oh man, holy ground.
It was.
It was. And in fact, was the holy ground. There goes another one. Cattle drops a cursed bullet, but it doesn't look like he's going to get out after that beautiful Stormbolt. Kenma not even needing the boop. Once again, the holy ground saving Zuna as he kites around it, baiting even out the Vorpal plate. My goodness.
Psalm.
That was an outplay and a half. Psalm is not going to make it out.
B-Kid, too, has been wrecking people as his late-game Muradin, as evidenced by Fury saying, yeah, I don't want to deal with this at all. B-Kid Kenma sitting on the point. The rest of the Immortal burned down by Team Naventic, and even with starting out that, losing Tomster, Sound Barrier being stopped by Cocoon, Team Naventic are still going to be able to get this Immortal.
Sound Barrier was used there as a 2-man defensive approach to the Immortal, so not having that to siege up with might be enough to... Man, I'm trying to figure out the Immortal moving through. It should be just enough time if they somehow get a pick or two and go for core. They will have it.
That power-up noise seemed so loud.
I guess it's very rare you sit there and watch the Immortal itself build up, though. You know, you're looking at other stuff half the time. He's doing his thing. This is that split on Battlefield of Eternity we often talk about when it's a double keep. What do? You go for the keep on the opposite keep because it's the safest 100% to get. And then you can try and force a split on decision-making for Tempo Storm. Threaten to go for the core and force them off of the Immortal on top, but it looks like they are not going to. They're just going to back out. Psalm knows this.
Psalm sees all. Double keep play from Team Naventic. This is the time. This is it for Tempo Storm to try to fight. They have caught Kenma.
Psalm gets poisoned though from the Lunara and slowed down. The flank coming out between Cawthon and Fury. Cocoon's gonna be dropped. The Gust is there to fall. The Stormbolt didn't land. Odin is curse bulleted and instantly Kenma and Tomster are out of here.
Oh, the dive was so amazing from June and Psalm. Cattleder 2. Zuna's not surviving. B-Kid not long for this world as the rest of Tempo Storm barrel down on him. Cattle going over the wall even, and it's only a matter of time until B-Kid falls. He's just trying to buy the time that he can. Lunara, the only player left for Team Naventic.
40 seconds for something to happen here for Tempo Storm. What do they want to do? Opening up the map is going to be in their best interest. Just how much can they really get? They haven't done any structural damage whatsoever in this game. The fact that we're sitting at a 4-man wipe at Tempo Storm. All right, focus the fort is not what you want to be saying at this point in the game. Do they go for the key front wall or a secondary fort? That's what I'm worried about.
15 seconds until Tychus is back, 10 seconds for Lucio, but we're still 30 seconds out before the full team of Naventic can try to stop Tempo Storm. But Tempo Storm, in staying caught up in experience, despite being down so many structures, is now actually ahead in experience for the first time this game. At least significantly a talent tier, so they'll have 21st and Immortals in 20 seconds.
With the top 4 not falling though, that puts it to where the Naventic knows where the Immortal's going to spawn. They have a lot more time to get free damage onto the shielding. So by not making that rotation and instead removing the Shaman camp on the side of Tempo Storm in that small 40-second power play, they might have risked a lot on their ability to be able to end this game. It all comes down to how much shielding Naventic has left up. Tempo Storm with the 20 advantage is going to be able to get the free 50% damage in here, go to halftime, and that's where Naventic is going to be posturing defensively.
Now there will be a 20 versus 20 fight. Unless Tempo could start this before Naventic gets 20.
Super glue on the XP bar. What's happening here? It's just not going anywhere.
Like, please, passively. We need this. 20's there. Bossa Nova, so more sound barriers more often for Naventic.
Flank from Psalm. Trying to move up. Naventic gets the Stormbolt here. He's just waiting in the wakes there. Waiting for big impact to make a mistake, and he's going to all in there with that rewind. Oh, gosh.
Biggie.
This is it. He's going to go.
This poor deer.
Oh.
He didn't go.
The patience. And Naventic's just keep moving up. They've got 2 keeps down. The one thing we have to keep in mind here for Naventic, oh, man, he was going for the back door on the Immortal?
It's going to take more than that, my friend.
Yeah, and it might have gotten him too far out. If they hit 1 Q, oh, that would have been it.
Again, too close for comfort. Team Tempo Storm can't lose anything at this point. Both of the keeps are down.
And what Tempo Storm has is the double keep down. Is just the pressure is going to be building up over time. They've got 3 catapults building on bottom, 2 up on top, and that will allow Naventic to back out for the 1-4 split and get some damage onto the Immortal. But you can see they're not willing to risk it, at least not yet, as they see the first couple of members of Tempo Storm worrying about that Merc pressure.
Lunara has stepped back to slightly pressure the Immortal health bar. She's still there. The health bar is falling. Tempo Storm will see this, but what can they do about it? They send Psalm in.
Oh, man, they sent Psalm on the defensive squad. Big Impact didn't want anything to do with that. He knows. He's like, I haven't seen Zeratul in a really long while. Here it goes. How many seconds do you think he's going to last? Is he deleted or super duper deleted?
If Biggie gets stunned, it's a duper.
It's a duper if he's stunned. The Odin. Psalm still trying to track it down. The Stormbolt landed onto Fury, took a bit of damage. Kenma healing everybody up there with the Amp It Up. Psalm still trying to flank on the back line, misses
This is
the
the
W.
Singularity Spike. Okay, we've got pause. We just freaked out.
That's no good.
What a tense moment.
Yeah, the entire time, Psalm just waiting, just, sharking is how we put it, and never pulling the trigger.
How long was it from when he attacked the Immortal, got chased away, to when he actually showed again? It was a good while that he was hidden.
It had to have been about a minute and a half. In the world of video games, that's like an eternity.
He's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
He's even got the greater spell shield to try and deal with that single target burst, but just a rewinded Zeratul, there's no, without a support, you just die. I mean, I don't know how that spell
Leaping
shield.
Strike.
But he just chases you. you can't out
Yeah, but
him.
if you could like leaping strike into a break it down, you've got to have the miracle.
Yeah, you do. I mean, when you have your support nearby, it's possible.
Yeah.
But every time we see Lunara kind of venturing outward on her own, it is so scary. I'm amazed Psalm has shown the patience he's had. I mean, obviously we got the God Eye, right? We get to see a little bit of everything. So we know when it was like, oh, he should have gone there because he's far enough away from everybody else. But he doesn't. He's only got bits and pieces
of information.
But so I can understand the patience, but he's gone about 3 times longer than I feel like I've ever seen a Zeratul just patiently wait for a misplay.
Well, guys, we are waiting to see what's going on. It seems like one of the members of Tempo Storm has been disconnected.